Consider this a quick disclaimer of sorts for these episodes. The first 5 episodes of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 I watched back for my original reaction channel. However, because corporations suck, those videos no longer exist. And I do want the content of my reaction and the commentary that I provided in the post-episode discussions to exist somewhere just for posterity's sake, I suppose you can say, because I really did enjoy these episodes. I really did enjoy the kind of in-depth sort of analysis that I tried to do on the characters and what was happening and all that. So yeah, I think I might have made these videos freely available on my Patreon. I can't remember, but regardless, here they are on my reaction watch-along channel for people to enjoy. If they do well enough, I may continue watching season 2 because let me be very clear about this. I did not continue watching season 2 offline past these 5 episodes. I still have not seen the rest of season 2, so please, 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 if you are going to comment, and by all means, please do so, do not say anything relevant to the rest of season 2. Do not spoil anything. I have still only seen the first 5 episodes of season 2, that kind of back to the past school days arc, so do not say anything past that in your comments. But other than that, please do remember to like the video, please comment, subscribe, check out other stuff on the channel, all those good things that you can do to promote engagement and interaction with the channel. But yeah, maybe I'll continue past this arc if these videos perform well on this channel, but otherwise just enjoy these for what they are. Hello and welcome one and all back to Jujutsu Kaisen, this time Season 2, Episode 3. Because of the little rant that I got bogged down in during last episode's intro, I forgot to talk about the editing things that I'm currently doing with videos on the channel. I don't know how much sense it would make to talk about it too much here and now, so if you want to know more about it, you can either check the pinned comment on this or any of the past few videos that I've uploaded, or you can go to the community tab on my page and scroll down until you see some of the posts where I talk about those editing changes and why I'm making them. As for the show though, a quick comment on that as well. While I have been liking it, my feelings of enjoyment are somewhat complicated by the fact that I know how short this arc is going to be. I just feel like with what we've already seen, there's kind of a lot going on with this arc, but we know that this is a fairly short arc. So I don't know that we're going to get an ending to it that I feel is satisfactory. There were like 3 other things I wanted to say, or at the very least different ways that I wanted to say them, but I'm having issues, so let's just get into the episode, shall we? Hey Patreon, I think I might be having issues with the player before we even get started, but we've got to try, so here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Fishies! Why are we looking at fishies? Oh my god, she's underwater. She okay? What? That was weird. That was odd. What is happening? I feel like I skipped 5 minutes in the episode. Those little 2-second flashes were not enough to explain to me what happened. I still don't understand how we're in this situation. I oh. I still think we came into this episode weird. What? What? Huh? What is good? I am so confused by the way they decided to intro this episode. Okay, we are back after having some player issues that are hopefully resolved for the remainder of the episode. uh, and that opening scene still feels odd to me. I don't know. Like, it just seems like almost an uncharacteristically poor display of tactics, I guess. Like, sure, we have Geto saying that he made a mistake by underestimating the value the enemy would place on Kuroi, but even still, I feel like with what little we were shown and what we're being led to believe, you have to assume that what transpired required Geto assuming that Gojo couldn't really handle the situation that he was in on his own. And then, okay, sure, Kuroi is slower than Geto, so it'd be easier for him to race ahead in order to get to Gojo and Amanai. But then what happens if Geto is intercepted by an enemy? Like, if we're having if we're to believe that Gojo is going to have issues handling an enemy on his own, then wouldn't it be fair to believe that Geto might also have issues handling enemies on his own? Uh, I don't know. And now, wait, and now we're just fast forwarding? No, I don't believe what I'm being shown right now. This doesn't make sense. Okay. There's no. I don't believe what's happening right now. I feel so incredibly sus about this situation that's transpiring before me. Okay, wait, Nanami? That's Nanami? I definitely did not recognize him in the opening. Incredible. Who's this guy though? You? Hmm. Don't recognize this other guy. Okay, so maybe just for the sake of the brevity of the arc, we did actually just skip over. This is wild. Gojo trying to make up excuses to stay on vacation. God, it feels bad how much I enjoy their relationship, knowing that something's going to happen. You haven't released your technique. You haven't slept. What is that in reference to? Is it the way that he's using his eyes to be on to stay on the lookout for danger, or hmm, this is so nice. Almost ruining a meal. Terrible prank. Oh. This music is doing I feel like the music is doing a really good job at providing kind of a relaxing atmosphere while also keeping us aware that there's there's a subtext going on here that makes this not all fun and games. And actually, maybe the music is mostly peaceful. Maybe it's something with I think it's more so something with the visuals that's kind of conveying that there is that this isn't just happy fun times, that there's, something else going on. I don't know. There was definitely there was definitely an undertone of kind of eeriness that I felt at least from that scene. He was doing something different with his eyes. The way his eyes were I'm sorry, what? Huh? Wow, this episode's got some wild pacing and transitions going on. What the heck? Nice eyes. Oh, wow. Jeez. You good, Gojo? I don't believe him. I don't know if I believe him. I'll deal with it. My guy, you just got stabbed. I feel like you should be switching roles here. I don't feel good about this. Oh, God. I'll say, yeah. But also, No. Nope. What? Oh, is that it? I don't know. I don't think I can trust any of Gojo's initial assessments. This guy seems way too crafty, honestly. Oh, love to see those smirks mid-battle. Yeah, he can talk. He can continue talking a big game all he wants. Like the sweat on his face is clearly indicating to us that like he's tired. What is this now? A very rough form of techniques we've seen from him before, maybe? Jeez. Let's just level the area so that I can see better. Yeah, now he can't be. Now there's nothing for him to hide behind. Yep. But maybe he doesn't need that. What? Nope. Mistakes were made. Oh, what? Gojo getting devastated right now. My word. Ha! Oh, what a way to. Ha, what a way to destroy the commentary of a reactor. Holy. I mean, he's good. He's good. He's tricky. He was able to distract, misdirect, all that stuff. Like, sure, Gojo's a high schooler right now. He's not the Gojo that we know in the present, but like he got played. He got absolutely outclassed. It was wow. We gonna get any conversation between these two, or what's going on here? I will say, possibly right before something awful happens. Um, I feel like in the past two episodes, we've seen some. Oh, what the heck? I didn't expect there to be such a massive structure down here. There's like a small city, but I don't imagine anybody lives here. What I was about to say actually was Ghetto has demonstrated a lot of care, I feel like, towards others. And wow, yeah. And just as I was going to talk about how compassionate I felt like we were seeing Ghetto to be, we see delivery on that opinion that I had. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned about what's happening here. What happens to him? What is about to happen to Ghetto in the next few episodes that changes him so drastically? There it is. No! Just like that. God. He's gonna lose it. He's gonna lose it. Man, man, I knew we were in for a bad ending, but that was still rough because of how effectively it was done. Like, it was I think you could definitely say that that was a little predictable in a sense, but it doesn't really matter. Like I'm someone who thinks that even if you can see story beats coming, or even if a story has like some aspects of standard narrative or some characters that are kind of tropey or cliche, it's possible to do things that are considered normal or common exceptionally well and make them better than you might expect them to be otherwise. And that's kind of what happened here. I feel like pretty much everyone was expecting Geto to be bad by the end of this arc. And I've been saying since episode 1 that I felt like there was some way that they were going to fail this mission because it felt to me like they were talking about Tengen in a different way here than they did back in season 1. And so something was going to go wrong, I felt. And to see the way that it was going to go wrong be that Gojo and Geto decided to encourage and support and defend Amanai in allowing her to live her own life, only for it to be cut short like that, right at the last moment, right at the most pivotal moment. It's predictable, but boy did it still hit. I think that's all for YouTube. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want, you can check out the Patreon, linked in the description below if you want to see what more I have to say about this episode, because I do have at least some more thoughts that I'd like to share about this episode. But regardless, whether you're interested in that or if I'm just going to see you next time here on YouTube, in any event, until next time, take care. Bye-bye. Okay, Patreon. First things first, did anybody else get immediately concerned when the music started playing? Because that was kind of how I knew that scene was going to go bad. Like, I mentioned that there was, there was other stuff leading up to it, but once the music, I believe it was the ED, once the ED started playing as Geto and Amanai were having their conversation about, her being allowed to choose to live rather than assimilate into Tengen, I I expected that the song was going to end on some sour notes. And yeah, I'd say that I'd call getting shot in the head a pretty sour note. Oh god, it just occurred to me, did he kill Kuroi in order to get down there? Because like he came the same way they did, right? And presumably Geto didn't realize he was coming for the same reason that Gojo couldn't sense him during their fight, because he doesn't give off cursed energy. But if he came the same way, God, that just makes it worse. Okay, that's fine. It's not fine, but it's fine. All right, let's talk about Suguru Geto, because I was barely able to make the point in this episode, and part of the reason why was because I wanted to make it like much earlier in the episode, but I got kind of sidetracked talking about how weird I felt like the episode started. I eventually what I came to settle on, and how I still probably think that I feel about it, is that the reason the first half or so of the episode was done the way that it was done was probably just due to time constraints. I think that, if this arc was 8 to 12 episodes instead of 5, then I feel like we get shown more. I feel like we get more time spent on, them getting Kuroi back, them having their multiple days of protection and on their little excursion to Okinawa and all that kind of stuff. And I do feel a little upset that we didn't get all that. Again, I said last episode or the one before, or possibly both, that, and I think at the very beginning of this episode as well, I think in my opener for this reaction video, I think I said that I am already feeling kind of bad about how short this arc is. I really wish that there was more time spent on it, but you know, it is what it is. We the decision was to make this short and then make the next arc for season 2 longer. So hopefully that arc is really cool. I have to imagine it is. I can't imagine that they cut this arc short in order to make some boring arc long. So there is that. But yeah, so slightly clumsy pacing and cuts and transitions and stuff aside, Suguru Geto. I feel like we have I feel like there have been multiple moments in the first 2 episodes where we were shown that, like, Geto seems to be a very caring and compassionate person. Like, and not just in, like, I would say that, in fact, with what we've seen, with what we were shown in the first 2 episodes, I wouldn't say that Gojo is callous or careless about people, but it's very much, I think that Gojo is a lot more, in a sense, like quote unquote normal people, in the way that a lot of people don't really go out of the way to show their care, in a sense. I guess to an extent, it depends on your worldview. A lot of people don't go out of their way to show care or disregard for others, one way or the other. Depending on one's own worldview, depending on your individual perspective and the way you see the world and the other people that live in this world, I think that there are, it is generally the case that you can read between the lines on people's words and actions in such a way as to make your own personal determination on how thoughtful or not each person in your life is. And I feel like Gojo, in a sense, falls into that category. We probably assume that Gojo cares just because we like Gojo. We've seen Gojo in all of season 1, and so we have reason to believe that he is a good guy, right? But I think if you look at Gojo's words and actions in the first couple episodes and try to ignore the lens, the preconceived notions in a way that you have of him, if you try to leave those at the door as we start this season, I think that you could see Gojo as a much more neutral party. And the reason that I go out of my way to talk about that is because I think that Geto is a much more actively good person. Like, we see in episode 1 his moral argument that he tries to have with Gojo in the gym about how it is the responsibility of people with power, it is the responsibility of jujutsu sorcerers to take care of the people who can't take care of themselves, to take care of the people who are weak. And that is not the philosophy, that is not the life philosophy of someone who is uncaring. Like, you don't put that kind of weight and responsibility on yourself if you don't care about other people. You just don't. And then in episode 2, there are a couple of different times when we see him try to be reassuring to Amanai. We see him, like in the scene at the pool with him, Gojo, and Kuroi. Kuroi talks about how Amanai's parents are dead and she doesn't have any family or anything like that. And so, you know, Kuroi has been looking after her since she was young. And Geto just kind of like, you know, it's it's hard to carry too much warmth in his facial expressions just because of how tired he is and how worn down he just kind of tends to look by default. But you can see him kind of smile at her and go, "Oh, so you're her family then." And you can see that that has a very positive, his words have a very positive impact on her. And the way that he takes what people are saying and the way he's able to read how they're feeling and he takes that into account in the way he interacts with them is very intentional. It's not something that just happens by accident. It shows deliberate effort going into being a force of positivity essentially in people's lives. And again, here in episode 3, I talked about it. I kind of was talking about it as it was happening. We see Gojo being, a good person in his interactions with Amana. We see that both he and Gojo were of the opinion that, like, if she doesn't want to assimilate, she's not going to assimilate. And if anybody has a problem with that, they have to go through us. They have to go through the strongest. And again, it felt kind of bad watching that scene with the expectation that it was going to end poorly, but it still served to emphasize this point that I'm making now, which is that, again, Gojo is not Gojo, well, him too, I guess, but Geto is a very caring person, and the way that he's like trying to be friendly and trying to put her at ease in and allowing her to make this decision, like it could have that like think about how different that conversation goes if it's someone like, hate to rag on my boy Kento, but you know, if it's someone like Nanami, who's just like, very stern, very, not very, like very much not openly friendly and not openly warm, like someone who's just trying to like get to the point of things in their conversations, someone who's like just like, well, yes or no, what are you feeling, what are you saying, what are you doing, like someone like, if it's someone like him being like, hey, Amanai, do you want to assimilate? Like, she's going to feel, she's probably going to feel more closed off. She's going to feel more so like she doesn't want to answer honestly or truthfully, probably, because if someone doesn't actually feel inviting with their words, then you don't want to make yourself open or vulnerable with yours. That's just kind of how people are in conversation. But Geto does properly convey genuine care in his question to her, and so she feels like she can be truthful and honest and open with him, and it allows her to feel like she's finally making the decision to live her life, and she is going to have the ability to do that, only for it to be immediately snuffed out. And again, Geto's response here is something that you don't see from someone who doesn't care. It's not just that Amane was just shot dead right before him, but also the fact that this guy was here and, Geto says, "How are you here?" And Fushiguro, he thinks for a second and then he realizes, "Oh, what you're trying to ask is, how am I here? Because you saw me fighting Gojo. I killed Satoru Gojo." And between those two things, Geto just loses it. He's like, "I'm going to kill you." And that kind of, in a sense, vengefulness, like that, someone who doesn't care doesn't feel that way. Someone doesn't get that spark of anger and rage and arguably hatred from the deaths of others if they did not care about the lives of others. Speaking of Gojo, and while we're talking about Geto, there's something else that I want to note real quick, which is kind of a little thing, but Geto and Gojo do refer to each other by first name. They do call each other Satoru and Suguru. And yes, they're kids, and so that kind of casual conversation is a little bit more to be expected. It's still the case that I think it is just another thing that shows not only how close they are, but again, just further emphasizes the whole topic of conversation that we were just having about Geto in general, being someone who, even if his face kind of belies it, um, this, Amane, when she first met him, said he has the face of a liar, and I've mentioned it before multiple times. He looks tired, he looks weary, and he doesn't look like a happy person, basically. He doesn't, like, even in the opening, when he, Gojo, and Shoko are taking the picture, like he doesn't smile in the picture. And so you could say that, because of his outward presentation at times, that he's just not someone who cares about people. But if he wasn't on good terms with the people in his life, like Gojo, if he wasn't actually good friends with them, he would probably just call him Gojo. He probably wouldn't call him Satoru, which he does. And I would argue that at times, with the tones he uses, I would argue that he even calls him by his first name somewhat playfully. And now this might feel like a bit of a hard shift, but now I actually want to talk about Fushiguro for a minute, and here's why. There is a lot of conversation and discussion to be done about people trying to figure out how Geto goes from where he is at the start of this season to where we see him in Jujutsu Kaisen 0 and Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1. His worldviews and personal philosophies just seem so starkly different when compared to each other. But I actually feel as though his worldviews in the present are somewhat similar to the way that we see Fushiguro conducting himself. And here's what I mean. When we see Fushiguro in last episode at the I don't think it was a ramen shop, takoyaki shop maybe, when he was watching the boat race, I believe it was, and he was getting those different snacks and stuff, there's a moment where he bumps into a guy and knocks over that guy's ramen. That's why I was thinking ramen shop. I'm pretty sure what he knocks over is the guy's ramen. A bowl of ramen, bowl of noodles. And he couldn't care less. He just bumps into the guy and keeps walking, knocks over his food, it's whatever. When the guy says something to him, he gets down on his level and just like looks him in the eyes to intimidate him. And then afterwards, he goes and gets, I think he was getting like tea or something like that. Then when he's coming back to the table, there's a shot that it shows us where he steps in the guy's noodles. What this tells me, what this interaction tells me, as well as some other stuff, but we'll get into the other stuff maybe in a minute. What this interaction tells me is this character is very much someone who does not care about other people. Like, not, and I don't just mean like in a rude way. I mean in like a modern Geto way, where he views regular people as ants at best. He views them as inconsequential. He views their lives as either an inconvenience or, if anything, a means to an end for him, which is makes sense as someone who makes their living as an assassin. Like, to care so little about this person, to not only knock into them and not bother to like apologize or offer to buy them a replacement meal or anything like that, but then like to step in those noodles on his walk back requires either so little concern for others around you to have basically almost forgotten that those are even there in order to show how little you care about, other people and what's going on around you, or intentionally stepping in them to kind of in basically the same vein show just how little regard you have for this person, that like you could step around it to not get it on your shoes or whatever, but no, you care so little about this person that you're going to step in their noodles just because you can, basically. I don't really know if I fully and effectively made my point with just talking about that little bit, so let's talk about some other things too. Again, the fact that he's an assassin and the way that he goes about being an assassin. Not only does being an assassin in general kind of show that you care about life maybe a little less than the average person, being willing to kill random people for money, but even some of the ways that he goes about being an assassin. Like, he, in order to make it easier to do his job well, he puts up a bounty to draw other assassins, other contract killers to the target in order to wear Gojo down. And he doesn't really care what happens to these other people. Like, I don't recall if he says this explicitly, but I believe he does. I believe he says something about how he doesn't care if these other curse users die in pursuit of, this bounty that he doesn't think they're going to be able to obtain because he does not believe they'll actually be able to kill the target and get past Gojo, which fair. Um, but again, the point there was that he doesn't care about the lives of these other people that are in the same line of work as him. He doesn't care clearly about the lives of the people who are protecting the target. He thinks he just killed Gojo. Obviously, Gojo is in the present, so we know Gojo's not dead, but he thinks he just killed Gojo, who is, sure, he's a Jujutsu sorcerer and a very powerful one and an obstacle to him doing his job, but he's a high school student. He presumably killed Kuroi, who is a maid, an attendant, and he also shot Amanai in the head, who is, I don't even think she's a high school student. I think she's a middle school student, right? Because when Gojo busts into the chapel to take her away in episode 2, I think that like one of the other girl students, like when they're all fawning over Gojo, I think that she says like, high school student. So I want to say that they're middle school students. So yeah, he shoots a kid in the head because it's a big payday for him and he doesn't care. And now let's circle back to again early on in episode 2 when I don't know the guy's name, when the handler, the broker, whatever, the guy who's working with Fushiguro on the logistics and details of this contract kill are, whoever he is, um, he asks him how Megumi's doing. And I said at the time, I thought it was very interesting how deliberately they were making his like need to think about it and then answer. And I felt like there were multiple reasons why that could be happening. This video is already getting pretty long, so I'm not going to talk about what those various possibilities were that were bouncing around in my head, but I will talk about what now, based on these further actions that we're seeing from him and this further classification, I guess, that I'm making of his personality, that from what we can glean as based on his actions, um, I think he legitimately just doesn't know his kid. I feel like he probably has little, if anything, to do with Megumi's life, and that kind of checks out with what little we heard from Megumi about his father. And yeah, that's wild. Like, I'm not personally someone who cares a super ton about familial relationships, but like, imagine forgetting your kid's name. That's kind of insane. Like, unless you're some kind of monarch with over a dozen kids to like 3 or 4 different women, like, I feel like there's not really a good reason for forgetting something as basic as your kid's name. Birthday? Maybe. Hobbies or interests? Maybe. Some things, sure. But their name? Wow. And actually, we even get a line from him this episode where he says that he has a hard time remembering guys' names too, or something like that, right? So, yeah, I feel like the traits that were being shown very much build a character that has massive disregard for others and really just only cares about themselves. Which again, I feel like kind of meshes with the ghetto that we know in modern times. And so all this is to say, I'm curious if we're going to get any kind of interactions or scenes between Fushiguro and Ghetto in such a way that Fushiguro is going to, I guess, rub off on Ghetto in a sense, and somehow influence him so severely that it's part of what causes this change from this Ghetto to the other Ghetto. I'm still really unsure on how that transition occurs because in my head, I'm having a really hard time reconciling these two different versions of Ghetto. Even if over the course of this fight, Fushiguro somehow like gets into Ghetto's head, I feel like with my understanding of this character at current, I would find it much more sensible for Geto to become someone who wants to eliminate Jujutsu sorcerers. But that's the opposite of the one that we know in the present. That Geto wants to eliminate people, humans, regular people who can't use Jujutsu sorcery. He feels like they're just, not worth living. So yeah, I guess all of this is to just say that I am still fascinated by the idea of this transformation that is ostensibly going to occur in the next couple episodes. And I'm, I don't know. I can't wait to see it because I don't know how they're going to do it in a way that makes sense to me. Because again, with what just happened to Geto, I could see him thinking that Jujutsu sorcerers are all awful people because of the way that, this whole event transpired. Just seeing all these different contract killers come out of the works to attack a middle slash high school girl, whatever, that he was trying to protect. Seeing this Fushiguro guy who shot this girl in the head after presumably killing his best friend. Like, I could see how that would turn him against this world of Jujutsu, and this girl, by the way, who he was about to help run away from Jujutsu, from the Jujutsu High, structures, the hierarchy of the school and, institution that he belongs to, because they wanted to force her to basically die, and he was ready to help her with, and just, yeah, I feel like I feel like there is enough awful stuff happening around Ghetto right now that would make someone with strong morals question the system that they're helping to support. And I do wonder if we're going to get like some kind of breakdown almost where, you know, he talks about wanting to change those systems or something. Because even the clans, like even what we've seen from the different clans, they seem kind of awful. And but yeah, again, I feel like with all this stuff that I'm saying, again, I feel like it would make more sense if Geto became someone who wanted to tear down the structures and existence of Jujutsu sorcery. But that's not the Geto we know. So I don't know. I feel like I'm starting to go in circles, so we'll table this discussion for now until we see more. It's just, I hope y'all get where I'm coming from. I feel like there were maybe a couple of other things that I could have talked about a bit more, such as like maybe some of the earlier scenes that we got in the episode. Like I talked about how, their days of protection felt very truncated. But maybe I could have talked about those sparse scenes a little bit more. There's some stuff that was going on in there that was interesting. Definitely some stuff from the Fushiguro and Gojo fight that were pretty cool that I could have maybe touched on. But clearly, one of the main things I've been focused on this arc has been the character development of Geto. And with how much I've already talked about my various thoughts, feelings, and ramblings on that, this video is already quite long, I feel, so we're just going to go ahead and end it here. If you want to hear more about any of the other stuff that I was talking about or thinking about or whatnot, I guess ask me about it in a comment. But otherwise, yeah, that's going to be it for this video, and we will talk more about probably this again in an episode or two when we get more on Geto. But regardless, thank you for watching and supporting on Patreon. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.